find it very difficult to buy a house in a class of city. The result is the mushrooming of slums. As administrators, we used to have that these are encroachers. Remove them. They are sitting on government land. They are encroachers. And if we implement this policy of removal of all these so-called encroachers, then the urban we have to remember that urban economy, the pillars of urban economy are there. It's not just poor. Poor people, they are construction workers, they are domestic workers. It's about raising the standard of the economy in a very good way. At the same time, there were many movements against living in Geneva when the government movements I'm not started using basic service which was then watching 20 hours, now it is now 20 hours. Even we have launched employment state government even we launched employment done hours. Where we have basic about houses for the economically weaker section. However, survey states that survey states that around 1 lakh economically weaker section houses are needed in the entire state, and we have taken the average of 50,000 houses in the next 5 years. And given that, even if we do this, we need to get to point. We are using pride also in this. And the most important difficulty in achieving this is the availability of land. Most of the government land in the existing cities, they are either enclosure farm or they are wanting some kind of legal difficulties. So these are challenges coming over with proper building bylaws for our existing cities is also a challenge. Infrastructure has come out with building bylaws. Since after situation has been under the COVID
स्क्रीन बड़ी करियो बड़ी बड़ी कर
on the one hand, we have a huge population of land is scarce resource. Somehow, there is relationship to go workers. And whenever if we increase the headcount, then we can say more to the now, there are a lot of countries who are much higher than us. Last year, we increased the trade norms and also the trading norms. And it was very large resistance. That's engineering resources. In the expanding cities, naturally, they try to occupy more space on the ground. It will result in reduced area of agriculture. Typically, we should have less of land on the and as for the existing city company, we have another child with the infrastructure, utilities like water, hygiene, This is what we do. So we try to understand that. Now the solution to come out of this is create these townships. Unfortunately, there is one solution due to the government. There is very little support for people from the Western India. What are really projects are being by the cities? I mean, there's some bias with everything now. But I feel that if we come out with cities, that will address most of the problems of existing cities because there has been migration to really created cities. There are plenty of job opportunities as well as recently looking for the existing cities. Some of them prefer to go there. And we will be able to understand the townships that come up because to address holistically the situation in existing cities is very difficult. Redevelopment is redevelopment or re-densification. There are also some more options after. There is where in the world where within India, some cities, some portions, this was affected. But again, in our country, to acquire land or to get stakeholders concerned for a redevelopment problem is very difficult. Even in Delhi, we have done 50 small redevelopment projects and 50 are in the pipeline. To come out with some of those projects, we have to really uh, struggle for getting the stakeholders concerned. In some of the projects, we need to get and they have to be done. The riverfront development that was told earlier, uh, we have two rivers, Rispana and Bunda, which are basically monsoon-based rivers. They have different rise in the and that is a kind of lot of encroachment that is coming up here. If you come from the comprehensive plan of resettling all these slum rivers, coming on with economic intersection houses, giving to them, removing them from the riverfront, area, and coming on with a comprehensive riverfront development project. Now, this is on the lines of South Riverfront Development Project or Atlantic Riverfront Development Project. So these are peaceful initiatives that we are taking. But to come out with livable environment in our urban areas, we need to have a lot of strategies and we have to remember that our urban population is on the rise and at some point of time, maybe in 20 years, 50% of India is going to be moving urban areas. And it is our duty and responsibility to provide them with decent because the GDP is generated now. We should not if we invest in our urban areas, we are going to get a return. Also, the GDP is going to come and talking about urban development doesn't mean that rural development is not rural development. If you look at it from the comprehensive picture, the rural areas are construction hubs and the urban areas are construction hubs. And it is very important to strengthen both so that the Indian economy and so this comprehensive efforts of all urban areas we are going to get a return from the partners from all countries. Each government has future plans. And talking about urban
Thank you, sir. Present amongst us are guest of honor Dr. Ajay Mathur is the Director General of TERI and a key member of the Prime Minister's Council on Climate Change. He was the Director General of Bureau of Energy Efficiency in the Indian Indian government from 2006 till 2016, bringing about energy efficiency in the everyday life and transforming it for a sustainable nation and world. Dr. Mathur was earlier with Delhi from 1986 to 2000 and then headed the climate change team of World Bank in Washington, D.C. He was president of Suzlon Energy Limited, also headed the Indian Secretariat of the Green Climate Fund. He has been a key Indian climate change negotiator and was also the Indian spokesperson at the 2015 climate negotiations in Paris. He is a global leader on technological approaches to address climate change. Recently, he joined the global group of industrial, financial, and think tank leaders to co-chair on Energy Transition Commission, which will suggest ways for companies and countries to move towards climate-friendly energy futures. With these words, I invite Dr. Mathur to say a few lines.
Professor Chaturvedi, Sri Ramachandran, Gupta, Rajshekhar, friends. It's always a pleasure to come back to Roorkee, and I thank the Department of Architecture for inviting me and more importantly for putting together this international conference on sustainable buildings or sustainable built environment. This, together with the four themes that we have, provide an extremely important input into building design, as in the sustainable built environment design, as Mr. Meenakshi just mentioned. It is important that we live in cities that are planned there, planned for us. We live in cities where the architecture of buildings is such that it is sustainable both in terms of its building as well as in terms of its use. We live in cities where the planning for all the services, not just of the buildings but of the city itself, is such that things like energy, like water, like sewage, are treated in a sustainable manner. And of course, a city is about art, it's about having a full life. And therefore, the kind of art, craft, and culture that go into designing the city and sustaining it is also important. As we look to the challenges of today and the kinds of opportunities that tomorrow presents, we make the stark difference between what we have and what we can. Mr. Meenakshi spoke about, in a sense, and Mr. Mayan was the dysfunctionality of many of the cities that we live. I would like to be extremely candid, and even though I am in the community of urban planners, maybe because I am in the community of urban planners, I would suggest that till relatively recently, certainly till the JUR, the vast amount of the core of knowledge about urban planning in this country was derived from. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's certainly unwavering. The reality of India of today is very different from the reality of Europe or the US of the 1950s or 1960s, when most of the textbooks of urban planning were written. Similarly, spoke about the huge disparity in incomes of the people who live in urban areas. And consequently, poor urban planning leads to slums. It is not as if other countries have not tried to address slums. As students of architecture, all of you are aware of the French experiment, who they also experimented buildings for the poor. There are entire communities of high-rise buildings for the poor building in many universities in Chicago, which have weather advanced are going to become now the hotbeds of gang violence. Clearly, that's we should learn. On the other hand, Dhara is one of the safest places on earth, but it doesn't have urban elements. What do we learn from this experience? I think as a community, particularly as a leader in a profession where this thinking needs to evolve, I would very much like to start thinking of these kinds of issues which are not necessarily very Indian, but also to see what the international experience teaches us. Your breath is your strength. I often give the example of a classmate of mine from the architecture department who works as an interior designer, probably one of the most successful interior designers in India today. Also works on very innovative building construction materials, batteries, and so on. And at the same time works on the redesign and upgradation of existing urban facilities. As I keep telling him, I don't think he could have developed his school anywhere other than Guru. I think the same kind of ethos allows you to carry out research along these entire chain. When I look at the city of Delhi, which I have now been involved on for 30 years, during these 30 years, 7 new cities have developed. Gurgaon, Noida, Dwarka, and so on and on and on. I do realize that the population of these 7 cities now is about double of the old city of Delhi, which existed 30 years ago. It tells us that there are huge opportunities. The point in this discussion was made for greenfield projects. There are so many greenfield projects available, except we don't recognize them. What should be the design of a city that comes up as a hub, as a new hub of an existing city? Within the Indian context, there is a very large number of people who, for example, live in Dwarka or Gurgaon and travel either to Gurgaon or Dwarka or to Delhi itself for work. One of the good things that has happened, at least in India as opposed to many other countries, is that at least we have built cities around multiple hubs. Hubs of commerce, hubs of business, hubs of industry. Instead of the unitary central business district, which was common in the literature of yesterday. These had taught us many things. I was completely surprised when I learned that the average commute in Delhi is, I thought it's something I was said about 20-25 kilometers. It's actually 7 kilometers. And I believe that the multi-hub approach has to contribute to this. The good thing is, the good opportunity is that the vast amount of our challenge, the vast amount of opportunity still lies ahead. My colleagues tell me that fully 2/3 of the buildings that will exist in 2030, 2/3 of the urban infrastructure that will exist in 2030 has not yet been built. Imagine this. Between now and 2030, the amount of urban infrastructure that will be built will be double of what exists today. What an opportunity! I suggest the challenge is to capture it. I'd like to focus the next few minutes on what I believe are the major challenges. In my view, there are 4 major challenges. The first challenge is to integrate the new urban design into the context. Whether it is greenfield projects that are on the periphery of cities, in Delhi, for example, or a completely new city, or it is in the hills, each will have a different approach. Again, one of the things that I would like to stress is that going from scratch in all of these takes too much time. Mr. Sunaki Susan does a meeting in development and asks you what are your key suggestions. If you say, I will go back and I will have a look at it and I will tell you, well, he doesn't have that much time, he'll move on. Each one of you as an expert needs to understand the literature and say, these are the key approaches. Now, how do I apply it to this particular case? Yes, of course, it will be different. But at least these approaches should be very clear. So approaches to urban design in the context of the specific, in the context of the very many kinds of perspectives that gather, as I said, new cities, as I said, cities in hills, cities, for example, the new capital of the state of Andhra Pradesh that is being built. I think we need to have a broad agreement on what this should be. I was very fond, as are many of my colleagues, of giving example of contrast between Atlanta and Boston. Here are two cities where the population is almost the same as per capita GDP is already. Atlanta is 7 times as large as Boston. Yet if you walk in those two cities, if you drive in those two cities, Barcelona does not seem crowded as Atlanta. Why? It's a question that has bothered many of us. And if you Google it, you will find that there is a large amount of literature that is emerging globally comparing these two particular cities. Why is this happening? It is complementary. One of the things, of course, is that you have tall building, you have to have a lot of setbacks. And I think it is worth a very quick exercise, a back of envelope exercise, that if you have 10 square kilometers and you only have tall buildings and you give the setbacks, what is the kind of population density? On the other hand, you have buildings which are tall but not too tall, say 4 or 5 stories, as Barcelona is. And then see what is the kind of population density. It is much higher. More importantly, it is very uniformly distributed. So instead of a lot of people coming in one tall building, which obviously has huge transport implications, which has huge electricity supply implications, which has water and sewage implications, you are more uniformly distributing both the population and the population. The second challenge, I believe, is sustainable building design. One of the challenges that I see in building design is, and again, pardon me for saying this to a group of architects, but is that buildings are designed to, one, look good on the plan, and two, look good when they are. These are realistic and I believe absolutely credible goals. But those goals cannot forget, again, the context within which we live. As I drive to Gurgaon and see glass-filled buildings, I think of, it does remind me of Europe or the US. Yes, it does. They are, in a sense, tomorrow's buildings. But that is an architecture that makes sense in Europe or the US, where the climate is cold and the glass traps the heat of the sun. Here it does the same. Traps the heat of the sun, and then uses a huge amount of electricity for that. We need to address the issue of designing the architectural design of the building and engineering design of the building at the same time. Not one of them does. We experienced, when I was in the field of energy efficiency, we initiated a process called design checks, in which the architect and the building engineers sat down together for 2 or 3 days as they looked at various architectural designs and the engineers looked at the various lighting and air conditioning and other service designs at the same time. Over a period of 2 or 3 iterations in 2 or 3 days, often the design change radically as did the energy used per square meter. It helps to talk. So, Vice Chancellor, Mr. Director, I would suggest that in this campus it would be useful to have a multidisciplinary group drawn from the departments of mechanical engineering, the departments of civil engineering, the departments of architecture, which helps in bringing together these competencies. It helps develop new ideas, own them. It also helps you reach out to the outside world with designs, with approaches that make very important and important sense. The third challenge that I would like to focus is the challenge of building. This is not just obviously for buildings, but it is also for roads. It is also for the parks that we make. It is also for the various kinds of other infrastructure that are put in cities. We have over a period of time tended to concrete. Concrete is a great substance, but it has like all substances its limitations, and I think we should take those limitations into account. While it can be argued whether roads should be made of bitumen or concrete, I think pavements in places where people walk need to be made such that, for example, water absorption can happen. As rains occur, that water goes through the pavement material and absorbs it. With concrete, all of it tends to flow into lines. In the case of buildings, of course, the matter is much clearer. If we use materials such as concrete, again, concrete is one of the best black bodies. And it has a emissivity of 0.9, which is one of the best black bodies you can have. Again, its use in countries like India becomes challenged. Okay, so what should we use? Particularly if you have a large building. Do you use shells which are shredded? Do you use other kinds of materials? Again, I think we need to develop at least a typology that provides some kind of guidance on what kind of materials make sense in various kinds of applications. This is important because as you know, if I am an urban designer working with or a PWD engineer, I am not going to spend a huge amount of time doing research. But if I am a rookie manager, which tells me these are the three things that make sense, if you learn that this makes sense, it will help you. The last thing that I would like to focus on is the challenge of resilience. We are seeing, for a variety of reasons, including climate change, that droughts are increasing as are floods. For coastal cities, the challenge of facing cyclones is becoming more and more intense. We need to make sure that we address this resilience. In work that Terry did with the city of Visakhapatnam on the east coast and the city of Goa on the west coast, indicated that while both these cities enjoy both a view of the sea and the advantages of the sea, there were key constraints. For example, most sewage, after treatment or before treatment, ultimately goes into the sea. When you have a storm surge, the sewage pipe is now below water and water flows the other way. The sewage comes into the towns. In the case of Visakhapatnam, when Cyclone Hudhud happened, we lost a lot of infrastructure. Now it is instructive to see how that happened. When the first wave, when the first winds came in, we saw, for example, that the electricity poles bent. They did not break. The loss of electric lighting, street lighting, etc., was less than 10%. But then the cyclone reversed and went backwards. So the pole was bent, now it went this way and it went. From a 10% loss of went up to a 90%. Clearly, materials which are more pliable make sense in such areas. Clearly, cabling which is underground makes more sense. The city of Visakhapatnam has started a process of listing these various vulnerabilities with a view to focusing on one, where differences can be made, and what they're focusing on is the specifications. And again, that's an area where I believe it would be useful to provide help in developing the kinds of specifications that can help to create a resilience to the kinds of vulnerabilities that they have. And they are looking at response options. If various things break, what is the failback, the fail-safe option or the fallback option that the city has? Cities in this part of the world are much more familiar with the vulnerability to floods. I think it was in the early 70s when I was growing up in Lucknow, there was a flood. And we were on the upper floor, and the lower floor there was 3 feet of water. It was great. Why was it great? Because there was 1 month of no snow. But apart from that, it was a disaster. The city came to a halt. And given the way cities are, they are not just places where we live, they are also hubs where, for example, the produce of the regions around those things. So all the mandis stop working. The mandis stop working. Wheat and rice, I think this was the time when rice was coming into the market, all of that got stuck. So it was not just an impact on the people in the city, it was also an impact on the why was water stuck? I mean, water was stuck for about 10 days, and then there was cleaning up, which took another 2 weeks after that. Why was the water stuck for 2 days? It turns out that in order to protect farmlands and other residential areas from floods, various levees, various embankment funds. Now, what these funds did was the water got trapped and it go down. In other words, again, the way we design our infrastructure also tells us where our vulnerabilities are. We have designed, for example, our sewage and our drainage systems for 1 in, I think, 20 years plus. I think the drainage system on this campus is designed for 1 in 20 years plus. However, with the kinds of climate change, there is We are not seeing that total amount of water drainage in the year changes. What we are seeing is that there are more events of high intensity. In other words, over the year, the water that goes through the drainage will be the same, but at peak, it will be double water. Are we ready for it? How do we make this true? There is an issue of budgets. There is an issue of taking things out of commission. When construction happens, clearly there is a issue of how you take care, for example, of the traffic, for example, of the kinds of drainage that is happening. This needs to be planned and planned well in advance. I think the flooding of Mumbai, more than any other cities, and more recently of Chennai, taught us that if we do not plan in advance, it can result not only in loss of income but also loss of lives. I believe that this community has a huge role to play in how we look at these things in the future. You are the sources of the issues that are discussed today. Seminars like this, what you speak in public fora, in government meetings, will decide what are the key issues that are taken up for discussion. You are the people who will provide the approaches, the manuals, the broad thinking that will decide how we approach these problems. You are the people who will provide the specifications that are needed when those approaches are implemented. I see this as a daunting task, but I'm very sure that this community is in a positive aspect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind words. I now take pride in introducing our director and Rajiv K. Chaturvedi. Mr. Chaturvedi has received his BTech in Electrical Engineering and Tech and PhD from the prestigious IIT Kanpur. He was previously teaching at IIT Kanpur, Roorkee, and the esteemed Banaras Hill University. In 1999, he joined the Department of Electrical Engineering in IIT Kanpur, officially as its head, and then Dean of Research Development. He was the coordinator for the PSL Library Technical Center of Excellence, which has done a large number of projects for Indian telecom sector. He is the recipient of the Distinguished Teacher Award of IIT and lastly won the fellowship of Nanyang Technical University, Singapore. Professor Chakravarti is a member of the nomination at the Election Commission of IEEE Communications Guidance and also served as Honorary Teaching Awards Committee. He is a founding member of Telecom Students Studies Development Associated with Design and Chairman Joint Practice, which organizes the annual National Conference in London. Professor Chakravarti was a member of the Department of Telecommunications Committee, which recommended criteria for spectrum allocation to telecom operators in 2018. He is known for his contributions to waveform shaping and sequence design. He is known nowadays he is working on the detection problem in massive MIO systems. I welcome this sir to request you to address the August gathering.
Thank you for the introduction. It makes my job somewhat easier. But it's very clear that I'm asking for doing communications. Communication is not topic for today, but still I have some experiences with my writing. Share. First, on behalf of the SBE, I think each privilege and honor that we have the opportunity to hear Dr. Meenakshi Sundaram, his real life experiences, and Dr. Ajay Mathur, both his real life and his academic and research experiences as the Director General of the The thoughts of both of them have given us lots of food for thinking, the way forward, the daunting task ahead, multiple songs and others. Having gotten this stage, I thought I can also share with you something that probably has not come to the fore till now. The theme of this conference is sustainable built environment. The word sustainability, sustainable development, and sustainable built environment all three have different connotations in different contexts. I hope that the conference over the next 3 days will really focus specifically on sustainable built environment and not go into too many generalities about what is sustainability and what is sustainability. Because for such conferences to bring the best out of the experts that are gathered here and for the collaborative thoughts or the exchanges that will take place. It is important that we remain grounded to the narrow focus of the conference. So within the context of architecture, planning, what is meant by sustainable built environment, that should bring out some new policy directions for our planners that are sitting here. We have very two distinguished planners in the government. We could suggest roadmaps, we could come out with guidelines or manuals as was suggested, or we just come up with some thoughts on which further work can be done. Or we could come up with conceptualizing some impactful projects which could then be funded by different funding agencies based on which this conference could be seen as the initiator of something which will make the events turn for the better in the future. We all know the problems, but unless we focus ourselves to bringing out results, I think we will end up on the topic. We all know the sickness, and whatever I am saying is not true. So let's try and make a difference. Let us try and keep ourselves focused on the theme. India, in terms of its values, we have been told time and again that several centuries back, we had very good water harvesting systems in the country. We knew how to survive droughts. We knew how to prevent floods. We had lot of values in terms of forestry and forestation. But over a period of time, because of various kinds of stresses, urban development, population growth, stress on resources, the traditional values could not evolve or could not adjust to come up with what is required in the changing times. And that is why the job of experts that are gathered here becomes more and more important. From the point of view of buildings, although the theme is on sustainable built environment, but if you look at some very simple examples in our day-to-day living and functioning, it will become very obvious to us, especially in the last 50, 60, 70 years. We have systematically neglected the job of the architect and the planner. This profession, I don't know for what reason, has not been able to contribute to the development of the country as much as it could have. And I'll give you a small task. Go to any IIT in the country. IITs are supposed to be technology leaders, supposed to be providing the country with options that are why we can in terms of education. And ask the users of any building that you are working in this office, you are working in this building. Tell me, are you satisfied with this design? Tell me that when you come in the morning and when you work the whole day and you go back, how many difficulties you face? And I'm giving you this job for any IIT, including some of the new ones. And you will see that yes, on one hand, some buildings have good aesthetic sense, but functionally they are very poor. You will have a tough time even in finding the location of the restroom.
Location of the rescue answer. Yes, sitting in this auditorium, and there was quite some time, there was some noise on the road, which was disturbing all of us. Even in the site is no exception. Go to the new lecture that has been built, and look at the complaints that are already there. Number of complaints. Why all this happens? This happens because when we start designing a building, we think that we have given the job to the architect, and now it is his job to do it. Architect does not have any idea of how we are going to do the building. Unless you sit with the architect, spend hours with the architect, try to jot down your thoughts, try to interact with the architect, and try to evolve the design over multiple iterations. Only then you will come up with a building which is both functionally efficient, is cost effective, and may also have a good aesthetic sense, and percentage utilization is also one. In fact, only yesterday we were discussing, and we came up that from now onwards, for every new construction that will be built in the campus, we will have a user committee defined from day one. The moment we conceptualize that we need a space, the first step would be that we should have a user committee. This user committee should have two distinct parts. One part will be the default set of experts, like somebody from the chairman estate and works, or default ex officio positions, which will consist of both the administrative and the expertise parts. And second will be a set of people who are actually going to use the building. And their job will not end in just writing a piece of paper that this is what we want. They have to continue to interact till the building is completed. Not when the building is started. In 2012, I was a guided company at that time. And I happened to be the dean of research and development. And we were discussing some general things about how to conceive big projects which can create an impact either on the national stage or on the international stage. One difficulty that most people said was, no, I cannot think big, I don't have space. I have great ideas, I really have people who are willing to fund my ideas, but where is the space to execute? So those kinds of handicaps or impediments were put forward. Dr. Kulkarni here is aware of what the experience I'm going to share because he was the building and was committed at example. So then as a dean, what we did was, we said, okay, now these are the constraints. Can we conceive of a space, creation of a space, which could respond to this requirement? And so we conceived of, over several months, a building called the research complex. The idea of the research complex was that it will have flexible spaces, it will have a time-bound allocation of spaces, and it should be available to all sections of the institution. Given these kind of boundary conditions, it was a very difficult task, and so no wonder it took 8 to 10 months to come up with a detailed set of requirements, interaction with the architect, we came into the designs. We finally saw that we need a set of dry labs, a set of heavy engineering labs, a set of wet labs, and then all the designs that in the wet labs, what kind of experiments, what kind of departments would be there, in dry labs, what kind of departments would be there, in heavy engineering, what kind of project could be done. And in the concept note, these several parameters were given that spaces will not be permanently allocated, they will be time bound. However, if there is an installation that has a life of 10 years, then there will be a separate space for that, those kinds of things. And then we did a competition of architects, 5 very leading architects of the country competed, and then one was selected. So the designs are ready, everything is ready, but then the unfortunate part is funding is still not there. So while everything is there, approved everything, 5 years back,
but it's waiting for funding. When the funding is right, then of course it will be conceived, otherwise it will be challenged. So the moral of the story is that very, very relevant concepts we are holding here. We must make sure that whatever we deliberate here sort of get captured. Also, the key conclusions in the national media, possibly, because this is a theme which concerns everybody. If we can really come out with very specific recommendations, general recommendations, I think it's easy to do. But when experts are here, when we have such a great department of architecture planning, more than 60 years old, pioneer in the country, then we expect something very relevant for to come out. And I'm sure that with the kind of effort that Dr. Rajshekhar, Dr. Leela Gupta have put in over the last several months in making the technical program, coming out with 4 themes, international participation, ability, and brought these two very distinguished speakers today. I'm sure that the outcome will be very good. I wish the conference a great success and hope that it will create an impact. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I invite SBE 2017 Organizing Secretary Dr. E. Rajshekhar to give a vote of thanks and conclude the inaugural ceremony.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to thank you all for joining. I thank MCCS at Meenakshi Sundaram for raising his presence for this ceremony. Knowing his commitments to the state government and the state, in this part of the elections, it has been a pleasure and it is nice of him to have agreed and spend his valuable time being here. We thank our guest of honor, Dr. Ajay Mathur. We know his commitments and findings in Delhi. He has taken a day off and he has been very encouraging from the day when we contacted him, and he has been so responsive and much willing to come back to his alma mater. I thank our director. He has been, again, from the first meeting, he has been so encouraging and so objective. Like, he said, be more outcome oriented. He has been finding that we try our best to get as best objective outcomes as possible out of the event. I thank our HOD, Dr. Leela Gupta. She has been the driving force. We are just the front ends of what is happening. We are trying to do our best on the ground. But she has been the one who conceived, who has been dreaming that we should have an international conference and this is the 60th year and this is the idea which we are trying to execute. There may be little hiccups in execution. We are trying our best. Again, my colleague and friend Dr. Arindam is our organizing secretary as well. We both are doing the show. He's sitting modestly down, but he has been, shouldering a lot of responsibilities. We have been doing our best, and we hope the further sessions will be as useful as possible to all of you. I thank our sponsors, Sir, DSC, CSIR, and Building Medical Technology Promotion Council. We thank universities. They have been so responsive and they have been so encouraging. They have taken a lot of interest and enthusiasm to run this show. I thank Meenal Berger for their support and contribution. I thank Armstrong's ceiling and wall panels. They have been, again, prompt response, I would say, from them. And I thank all the participants, national and international. Some of them who couldn't make it, even, they have been so responsive and they have said, they would be sending posters which they are trying to display here. And to our part, we are trying to be a little sustainable. We are doing a live streaming of this event right now. Some of our kids, third year and second year kids are joining the show. The event is being managed with cast and the link has been sent to institutes in India as well as abroad. I hope there will be a good footfall for this. And I thank all the volunteers who have been tirelessly working for the past 2 weeks, especially for the last week, sleepless nights. Thanks all of you. Not to name them individually, and all the faculty colleagues, the scientific committee has been so supportive. Dr. Uttam, Dr. Ram Satish, I thank our conveners, Dr. Chani, Dr. Mohammed. They have been advisors and mentors for making this show happen. And I wish all the participants all the best, and we'll play our part to do our best. Thank you all of you.
Thank you very much, sir. I now request all gathered here to please stand up for the national anthem.
पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गावे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।
Now invite our guests for the tea break to the side court. Thank you.